Hey there! Ready to go underground. Today we're diving deep into the coming race, which, by the way, is more than just an adventure story. Imagine a whole civilization hidden beneath the surface of the Earth.
Oh, absolutely. The Coming Race is a classic. It's a story that really gets you thinking.
It really does. We're talking incredible technology, a unique language, and a social structure that makes utopia look, well, pretty achievable, actually.
It's a fascinating blend of science fiction, social commentary, and even a bit of philosophy.
Right. It's got it all. Okay, so let's get into it. Our protagonist, let's just call him the Traveler.
Sure.
He stumbles upon this hidden passage in a mine. And this passage, it leads him down, down, down into this hidden world.
Like something out of Jules Verne wrote.
Exactly. And the way the author describes it, it's so vivid, you can practically feel the darkness closing in, the sense of claustrophobia. And then, bam, this incredible burst of light and warmth as he enters this hidden realm.
It's like the author is playing with our expectations.
Yeah.
We think of underground as this dark, forbidding place,
Right.
but he's presenting it as this paradise, this place of beauty and abundance. It's really quite clever.
It totally is. He talks about shimmering lakes, giant ferns, these enormous fungi with dome-like roofs. It's like a Garden of Eden tucked away from the world as we know it. And then he meets them, the Vril-ya.
Oh, the Vril-ya, this is where it gets really interesting. They're humanoid, but with wings, and they've mastered this powerful force called Vril.
Hold on, wings? Like they can actually fly.
They can, and it's not just flapping around like birds. Imagine wings that extend over their heads, holding them effortlessly aloft, powered by this force, this Vril that they've somehow tapped into.
Okay, now my mind is officially blown. So what is this Vril? Is it like electricity, magic, some kind of alien technology?
It's more like a universal energy source, but with the added capability to control gravity, manipulate matter, even influence consciousness. It's as though they've discovered the fundamental building blocks of reality and learned to manipulate them at will.
Wow, that's a lot to process. So they've got these incredible powers. But what are they like personality-wise? Are they friendly? Menacing?
Well, the traveler initially finds them a bit intimidating. I mean, can you imagine? He encounters one Vril-ya standing outside a massive building and compares their appearance to images of demons on Etruscan vases.
Whoa.
Keep in mind, he's coming from a world that's still grappling with industrialization, social unrest, you name it. So this encounter with the Vril-ya, it challenges his whole understanding of what it means to be human.
That makes total sense. He's basically face to face with a species so advanced, it's almost beyond his comprehension. It's like showing a smartphone to someone living in the Stone Age.
Exactly. And it gets even more intense. At one point, a Vril-ya touches his forehead and shoulder with this staff.
Okay.
And the traveler is suddenly overwhelmed with this sense of contentment, of pure joy. It's almost as if he's being controlled, which understandably freaks him out a bit.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'd be a little apprehensive about that too. It's like he simultaneously wants to understand these beings and like run for the hills.
And you have to remember, this encounter is also our introduction to the concept of Vril, this force that can be used for both good and evil, which really amps up the tension.
It does. So what happens next? Does he get a chance to explore their world a bit?
He does. He's taken on this tour of their city, and let me tell you, he is absolutely floored by what he sees. The Vril-ya have mastered automation to an almost unimaginable degree.
Like those robot vacuums everyone seems to have now, but on a much larger scale, I'm guessing?
Think self-operating machines gliding effortlessly through their cities, air-powered boats soaring through the air. Even their architecture is out of this world. They have these massive halls illuminated by glowing rocks with floors made of precious metals. There's even music that seems to emanate from the walls.
It's like stepping into a science fiction novel. Or maybe a dream. So they have incredible technology, but what about their culture? Are they all about logic and efficiency, or is there more to them than that?
That's what makes the coming race so thought-provoking. The author isn't just showing us cool gadgets, he's asking us to question what a truly civilized society might look like. And that's where things get really interesting.
All right, I am hooked. We'll have to pick up on that next time when we dive into part 2. So last time, we left off with our traveler completely floored after seeing the Vril-ya's insane tech. Like seriously next level stuff. But their society, it's not just about gadgets and gizmos, right? They're peaceful, almost strangely so.
It's one of the most fascinating aspects of the Vril-ya, wouldn't it say? I mean, they've achieved this level of social harmony that most societies can only dream of. No crime, no poverty, no social unrest. It's like they fast-forwarded a few centuries to a utopian future.
It's wild, but how is it even possible? What's their secret sauce? Is it all just the Vril-ya?
It's definitely a huge part of it. They've learned to harness Vril not just for technology, but for personal and societal development as well. Like they've unlocked a higher level of consciousness through this force, which has led them to value cooperation over competition, understanding over conflict.
So it's not just that they have flying cars, it's that Vril has actually changed how they think and interact with each other.
Precisely. They even have this saying, a glorian, which means the good of all.
Eglorian, the good of all. I like that.
It's this idea, this core belief that underpins their entire society, this understanding of unity, knowledge, and working for the common good. It's a far cry from the traveler's world, where individual ambition and competition, they're seen as the driving forces of progress.
That's a pretty radical concept. And speaking of radical, their language is another thing that sets them apart. What can you tell us about that? Because it's not just like English with a weird accent, right?
Oh, absolutely not. Their language is a whole other thing entirely. It's incredibly complex, yet strangely efficient. They can convey like these incredibly complex ideas with just a few syllables. Their words reflect a deep understanding of the universe, you see, and have actually evolved over time. They started with single-syllable words, moved on to longer words formed by combining syllables, and eventually developed a language with inflectional forms like Latin. But then, get this, their scholars simplified it back down, preferring words of 3 syllables or less.
That's fascinating. So it's like their language has gone through this whole evolutionary process to become incredibly precise and nuanced.
Exactly. And it shapes their whole worldview. For example, they don't have a word for evil in the way that we understand it. They use the term Nanzi, which translates more to eternal evil.
Nanzi, eternal evil. That's a pretty heavy concept.
Right. But it highlights their perspective on evil as this constant force that must be acknowledged and understood, rather than something that can just be eradicated.
I see. It's like their language itself reflects a different way of seeing the world.
It really does. And it further emphasizes their perceived advancement compared to the traveler and his barbarous, as they might see it, way of life. They even have a word that combines the concept of invention with, like, musical intonation, which they use for poetry. Imagine that.
Wow, their poetry slams must be something else. Okay, so we've got peace, advanced technology, a nuanced language. It's almost starting to sound too good to be true. Are there any cracks in this utopian facade?
That's the question the traveler starts grappling with. He's blown away by their achievements, obviously, but he also sees this, like, potential downside to all this peace and harmony.
Like what? Spill the tea.
Well, for one thing, they have a very, shall we say, strict policy about interbreeding with other races.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. They believe it would weaken their species, dilute their vril powers, and anyone who violates this law, well, let's just say they face a pretty grim fate.
Yikes. So much for free love. It sounds like even in paradise, there are rules and pretty harsh consequences for breaking them. What else is our traveler noticing?
He's starting to feel the weight of their, I guess you could say, utopian perfection. Remember, he comes from a world of constant struggle, of striving for something better. The Vril-ya's peaceful existence, while appealing at first, it starts to feel a little stifling to him. He misses the sun, the open sky, even the challenges of his own world.
It's like that saying, right? You don't know what you've got till it's gone. But in reverse, he didn't realize how much he appreciated the struggles of his own world until he experienced a world without them.
Exactly. And this internal conflict that he's going through, it highlights this key theme of the story, this tension between individual freedom and collective harmony. Can we as humans achieve true peace and happiness without sacrificing our individuality, our ambition, our desire for something more?
That's a question that's been pondered by philosophers for centuries. Is a life without struggle truly a life worth living?
Right. And this whole internal struggle that the traveler's dealing with, it becomes even more complicated when you factor in his growing feelings for a certain Vril-ya named Z, the daughter of his host.
Ooh la la. Sounds like things are heating up. Tell me more about this Z.
Z is, well, she's brilliant, she's beautiful, and just as powerful as any other Vril-ya. But she's also quite taken with the traveler. She represents, in a way, the open-mindedness and curiosity of the younger generation of Vril-ya.
Ah, young love. But something tells me this romance won't be all sunshine and roses, especially with that whole interbreeding rule hanging over their heads.
You're definitely right about that.
Right.
Z's fascination with the traveler, while innocent enough, it could have some serious consequences for both of them. Remember, the traveler, he's a product of his world. He's carrying all his own baggage, his own prejudices into this utopian society.
So we've got a classic clash of cultures brewing, plus a forbidden romance. This is getting juicy. What happens when these two worlds collide? We'll find out after a quick break. Stay tuned.
So last we heard, our traveler was stuck between a rock and a hard place. Or I guess it was more like a love triangle and a death ray, right? Pretty much. And let's not forget, he's starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, this whole utopia thing isn't all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, those cracks are starting to show.
Yeah.
But what about Z? Does she just give up on him?
Oh, Z. She's not giving up that easily. She's head over heels, completely smitten, and she's convinced that they can make it work no matter what. She even offers to, get this, take him back to the surface world.
Whoa, now that's commitment. Talk about going the extra mile. But I have a feeling her dad might not be too thrilled about that plan.
Yeah, Aflin's not exactly doing cartwheels of joy when he finds out about their little romance. Remember, preserving the Vril-ya way of life is his top priority, and that includes keeping their bloodlines pure. He sees the traveler as a potential threat, a wrench in the gears of their perfect society.
So what does he do? Does he, like, challenge him to a Vril-powered duel?
Well, let's just say Aflin is not afraid to use more permanent solutions. Remember that rule about interbreeding? The consequences are pretty final. We're talking disintegration rate levels of final.
Yikes. Yeah, that'll put a damper on a blossoming romance. So what does our traveler do? He's caught between a rock and a hard place here.
He tries to do what he thinks is right. He tries to let Z down gently, explaining that their worlds are just too different, too far apart. But she's not buying it. She's convinced that love conquers all, even giant cultural differences, and, well, the threat of being vaporized.
That's some serious faith in the power of love. I mean, I admire her optimism, but she's also a little naive, isn't she, about the surface world, about the traveler himself?
She is, and that's part of what makes her character so compelling, I think. She embodies the Vril-ya at their best, compassionate, open-minded, full of love, but also perhaps a bit blinded by those ideals. She sees the good in the traveler, the potential, but she doesn't fully grasp the danger he represents, both to himself and to her people, just by being who he is.
It's a classic dilemma, right? The clash between individual desire and societal good. What's the right thing to do when they're at odds?
Exactly. And it's made even more complicated by the traveler's own evolving feelings. He cares for Z, but he also realizes that he can't stay in this gilded cage, no matter how tempting it seems.
So how does he get out of this mess?
Well, that's where Z's younger brother Tay comes into play. Remember how we talked about the younger generation being a little more flexible in their thinking?
Yeah, Tay seemed to connect with the traveler a bit more, didn't he? Less rigid, maybe.
Exactly. Tay sees the traveler not as a threat, but as an individual deserving of empathy. He doesn't agree with his father's extreme methods and decides to intervene to help the traveler escape.
Wow, talk about sibling rivalry. What a twist. So it's a daring escape in the dead of night. They hotwire a flying saucer and make a break for it.
It's a little more nuanced than that. While Tay wants to help, he's still bound by his society's rules, his father's authority. It's a delicate balancing act, risking everything for what he believes is right.
Man, the suspense is killing me. So does the traveler actually make it out?
He does, but not without Z's help. In a truly daring act, she wakes him in the middle of the night and leads him back to the chasm where he first entered their world. And here's the kicker. She's used her Vril powers to create a new passage, a way back to the surface.
Wow. She really put it all on the line for him. Talk about a grand gesture. But it's bittersweet, isn't it? Saying goodbye to the only world she's ever known, to the man she loves.
Absolutely. But it's also a testament to her strength, her willingness to defy even her own people for what she believes in. She chooses love and compassion over blind obedience, even if it means letting go.
That's a powerful message. So what happens to the traveler? Does he ever look back?
As he climbs towards the surface, towards the world he knows, he sees her one last time. Standing at the edge of that chasm, a symbol of the life he's leaving behind. Her face reflects the pain of separation, but also a glimmer of hope, a certainty that she made the right choice.
Wow, what a journey. We've gone from the depths of a hidden civilization to the heights of forbidden romance and back again. It's been quite the roller coaster of emotions.
It really has. And through it all, the coming race challenges us to examine our own assumptions, our own values. What does it mean to be civilized? Can utopia ever truly exist? And what are we willing to sacrifice for love, for freedom, for a different way of life?
Those are questions that have resonated with readers for generations. It's a story that stays with you long after you finish the last page. If you haven't read The Coming Race yet, I highly recommend giving it a go. It's a wild ride that'll make you think and maybe even question everything you thought you knew about the world, both above and below the surface. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the stories that challenge and inspire us.